Oh, here's one. Here's one with my hair short. You see, I lost all my hair after the operation. Like when I was going down for the heart transplant, I just felt like I was going to get my tooth out, but then you realise, gosh, when you wake up and you see you're in a cockpit of machines and you can hear your new heart ticking, and then you kind of realise the enormity of the operation. But I lost all my hair. But now because of medication I've been able to grow my hair, which I always wanted long hair. Mind you, I never thought it should take that amount of medication to get it to grow. And that's my little darling. Look, she was only 6 then, now she's 13, going on 27, as they do. That's about it, they're just cousins. Oh, here's something now. There's Brendan Gilly. No, Brendan Maloney and Brendan Maloney playing tennis. That was at the games in Dublin. That's the one. See over there now, Gary, I won 2 medals, the first 2 in Dublin. That was 2002. And the other 3 I won in Sweden last summer. We went over, a group of us, to Sweden. And I won, for swimming I won 3 medals, 2 silver and 1 bronze. There was a girl from I think she was from Norway or somewhere, and she kept getting the gold on me, but don't worry, I'm getting in training now, and in 2012 the games will be in Holland, so I'm going to beat her. Simone was her name. I'll have a look at, she'd a double lung and I thought she'd be a walkover, well she certainly wasn't.
Hello, this is Bridget here with her husband Aidan and Denise. I'm just an ordinary girl, everyday housewife at home. When I was walking, I discovered I got a shot at some breast, and I went to the doctor and I said to the doctor, I must be getting old. I was breathless, and he said to me, we'll go on antibiotics, and I went on the antibiotics, and I was working a part-time job near home, and I noticed a lot I was breathless, so I got a cold, and I went back to him, and I was coughing of blood, and he immediately went to the, we got an X-ray done, and within 2 days I got a cold, and he told me I had to get going to the regional hospital. I had pneumonia, so I was there anyway in the hospital, and for 2 weeks, and the pneumonia was gone, but he had discovered a rare disease in my right lung. He got a second opinion from London, and he discovered it was lymphangiomatosis, Lamprey shot towards the east edge of my body. So he said to me that my lung is destroyed, that I'd have to go for a transplant.
That was my third Christmas in hospital that year.
Yeah.
In St. Vincent's beforehand. Didn't matter, and the matter didn't when I got the heart. Now it's 6. But the doctor would come in to me in the start. Actually, he said, you're going to be dead in 7 days or 10 days. Just wrote down the paper here.
Yeah.
Unless we get a heart failure. But he said, we can't put our hands on a heart now.
Yeah.
But he said, we have this artificial heart. I must tell you, he said, a young boy was on it first, our first patient, and he passed away after 13 days. So, what else was I supposed to do? Are they taken?
Of course.
That was put in on a Saturday. With all that in here. The night that died in August, Margaret, the second time I was going for the heart. 99% it was mine. I had phoned the family at home and all washed up and scrubbed and all. That's the worst part of it, the scrubbing. And I was ready and all for it, on the table, the stretcher going down to the table. When Mr. Woods or somebody sent up a message They thought the heart wasn't strong enough for me. That was disappointment, of course. And when I came back then, that was 1 o'clock. And I remember in sleep wing that night at 5 o'clock in the morning. Dr. McCarthy, Jim McCarthy, came up to me at 5:30. He said, "Julie, I'm so sorry that the heart didn't work out for this during the night." He says, I said, "How's things going below?" He said, "Very good. We're putting the heart into a man now below." He says, "All is good." So that made me happy.
Yeah. But you're still back to waiting.
I still back to waiting.
While I was still in Newcastle, the coroner came around and asked did I want to know anything about my donor. And I said, yeah, I'd be interested to see. So she told me that it was a girl from Leeds. She was 36, so she would have been 6 years older than me. I did ask how did she pass away, and I kind of regretted it then when I did ask, because I'd always said I don't want somebody that took their own lives, because for me that would have been quite emotional. And yeah, my donor took her own life, so it's what I didn't want. I did write a letter when I came home after a few months, when I kind of thought about it and I felt a bit better. I wrote a letter to our family, and our family wrote a letter back, and they get quite a lot out of knowing that their daughter had saved so many other people's lives. She had attempted suicide a few times and she'd suffered from depression for a long time. So they were not happy that she was gone, but happy that some good had come out of her life. And we had quite a lot of similarities. She had been to Ireland a few times on holidays. She was a bit of an artist. She loved painting, and so did I. She had a husband as well. Because we had so many similarities between us, I felt I'm carrying a bit of her with me, and I just hope I maybe bring happiness to her life that she never could find before. I just live as much as I can. I find it very hard to plan forward, to say I'm going to do this next week or I'm going to do this in 6 months' time, because I lived so long without knowing if I'd be here the next day that I don't tend to do that as much now. I'm a bit more spontaneous, and if somebody says come on let's do this, I'll okay, and I'm away. So
2 weeks into 6th year, I'd come down a little on my anxiety tablets from a higher dose to a lower dose, and I was at home getting used to the medication, because it's a medication you kind of have to wean off because it has a lot of effects on your body if you go off it straight away. So I was at home one day and I was just out of bed and I was downstairs and felt grand all morning. I took my tablets as I usually do at 9 o'clock, and I went upstairs to get some money for credit for my phone because I was texting a few of my friends, and I was lying on my bed. I ended up lying on my bed for some reason. There was money on the floor or something behind it, so I was trying to get it out and I couldn't sit up, and I was like, this is really weird, and I thought it might have been just wasn't able to sit up, so I tried again and again, and eventually I did. But as soon as I sat on the floor, as soon as I stood on the floor, I just literally collapsed, and half of my body I couldn't feel it. I couldn't get up. I tried to get up, couldn't even do anything. I was actually really lucky because my dad's a teacher and he was on a half day from school, so I was lucky that he was here to ring an ambulance or something like that, because he couldn't hear me for a good while. I was banging on my floor in my bedroom, and he thought it was like there was people going around checking the boxes on the side of the houses. He thought it might have been them putting a ladder up the side of our house, but it was me banging the whole time. So he eventually came up and he was like, "Aoife, are you banging?" And I was sort of half unconscious on the floor, and he's like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And I was like, "I don't know what's wrong, I just can't move." And he was like, "Oh, maybe you took the wrong medications or too many of your medication." We didn't think it was anything serious like a stroke or anything. So he rang an ambulance, and I was just on the floor upstairs. Like, he decided not to move me, so he was keeping me awake by talking to me, and it felt like forever for the ambulance to come, but he said it was really quickly. Like, it's a bit mad when you're 18 years old and you're just living your life as a normal 18-year-old, going in and out of school and being with your friends and doing your dance club or whatever, and then just one day you just have a stroke. It's kind of a bit crazy.
I was on crutches and I was dragging myself around. Then I turned around and I bought myself an automatic car. I bought myself a new car with a soft top. And I said, if I'm going to pop me clogs, I said, I'm going in style. And I got into this lovely Audi and I put my foot on the pedal and it shut off. I said, yeah. And I was locked, I was cocooned in that car. No one knew anything about me and I was in a different world. But I still needed the heart. And in January 2006, I drove down. I hadn't been out of the house for over 3 weeks. And I drove down to Greystones. And I said, I'm getting out of this car. And I physically couldn't get out of it. And I looked in the mirror and my face was purple. And I knew it was going, I knew I was dying. And the Christmas beforehand was my last Christmas with my old heart. And I knew it would be my last if I didn't get a heart. I knew it would be my last. And over the Christmases, over the last 3 or 4 Christmases, there were transplants. And I waited all Christmas Day, my hand on the bleeper. And I said to them at the table at Christmas, if this bleeper goes, I'm taking this dinner with me because you get nothing when you go into the Mater Hospital to eat. And we laughed and I waited for the bleeper and it didn't go. And we had dinner. David and Chris and Stephen, my family, had dinner. And I was exhausted. And I went upstairs and I sat on my bed. And my other little dog, Toby, that my son had taken for me, came up and he sat on the bed and I tried to get into the bed. But before I did, I looked down through my back window and I could see through the conservatory roof, the 3 of them sitting at the table. And I said, it's my family. And I came back in and I sat in the bed. I said, geez, I said, what a way to end up. And I said, all I ever did, I said, was work. And I said, I worked from the time I was 14. I said, what a way to end up. And I said, you took the 2 girls from me and I never give out. And I said, give me a break. I said, I want more time with the lads. So there was Toby sitting at the end of the bed, looking around him as much as saying, who the hell is she talking to? And I got myself into the bed and I lay down. And I said, you know, it was a very unusual day. And I said, I don't want to miss this, the rest of the time with my lads. So I got a bit of a rest and I came back down again. And I was grand then, I was okay. Never let them know anything and they cleared off and they pottered off to their own houses and I came back again and then I hadn't been out of the house for quite a while. And I went over to a friend's house for the New Year. And I'd been for several years to her house. And again it came back, I'm not going to see another year. I'm not going to see another year. Unless the heart comes up, I'm not going to see another one.
There's a lot of interest in that painting there because I did it before, during and after my transplant. And I was out in the art room, the shed at the end of the garden used to be my art room. But and I was getting ready to put it into an exhibition and I was trying to put a price on it. And I said, God, how come I can't put a price on this? And he said, get a glass of wine, sit out here, I've something to show you. Now, which I did no problem. Then I was sitting down. You see, I started this before I got the virus and I was very happy with this elephant. I was not happy with the leg of this one. And I sat back and I just sat there for half an hour sitting there looking at it. Why can't I put a price on it? Then it dawned on me. That was my donor heart on the right hand side coming out of the heat of the day. there I was up in the matter, stuck with this leg out on a balloon pump. And there was all my family. And when I came home and was recuperating, I put in my little daughter. I didn't realise you were filming. But it's kind of, for me, it's before, during and after. So I can't sell my donor heart. So it's going to be an heirloom.
20 to 12. Yeah. Got a phone call just before it. Waiting for my toasted sandwich, my cup of tea, my pot of tea. They were very busy outside. And Roisin says, "We're very busy outside, Julie," but she knows something. She had to know. I never got the doctors come in taking blood out and made sure that's what they were up to. They had to be. And then I went to the toilet. I was inside with the machine, pulled up the door, was at the toilet, and Roisin turned into the room where I was gone, Julie, in the toilet. There's a phone call after, she said, Julie. And it was Dr. McCarthy. He said, "Julie, are you fixed for the heart tonight?" I said, "You're joking me. A heart tonight? You have to tell me this a couple of times before." I said to him, "Tonight is the night." He says, "Tonight is going to get you off this machine." He says, "Are you up for it?" Of course I am. So I'm 10 minutes or 20 minutes ready for the table. There was no tea that night, no tea, no sandwich, toasted sandwich. I didn't give a care. After the table, Margaret.
Yeah.
Next thing I got called in the middle of the night at 10 o'clock. My father rang me at 6 and he says to me, "Bridget, you're still there." And I said, "I am." He was on the after coming from Loads and we went off. I got called that night and we collected Denise from Dublin, and the two of us went off to England to be called for the transplant. We were there then, and next thing, before we knew it, they were giving us an injection, and next thing, Ian, one of the coordinators, said, "You give me the tablet to go on the transplant." It was Cyclosporin tablet, and he said, "You'll be on them for the rest of your life." And I said, "Fine." And I said goodbye to Aidan like that, and off I went for my transplant. And all was worrying me was the rosa beads. Where will the rosa beads be? And they were asking me questions about the East and all this, and next time I went off to sleep, and I didn't see no more until the morning. And Aidan, I remember waking up, and I says to Lil Holt, I said, "My dad got the transfer from me, he just came from Loads." And I said, "Well, go away and get the green box for me." And she went off then, and Lil went off and told Aidan she only wants to do up herself. She's looking for her makeup. She was looking for her makeup.
About a year and a half after my transplant, I started working with Samaritans. I don't know why I was drawn to Samaritans, but maybe it was my experiences after my transplant, or because I knew how my donor had died, but I was drawn to them anyway, and I worked with them for a couple of years on the helplines, and I always had a different aspect on suicide, I suppose, than anybody else, because I was still alive, because somebody else had taken their lives, and because they had made known to their families that they wanted to be a donor. So I suppose I had not a positive outlook, but I was more accepting to maybe why people took their own lives, and that some positivity could come out the other side of suicide. I suppose it was an emotional couple of years that I did with the Samaritans, especially then somebody close to me took their own lives. And that put another spin on it for me altogether, because I was at conflict then, like I didn't know, well, I knew why he had taken his own life, but when it directly impacted on my family, it kind of threw up a whole lot of other questions for me then. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind the past couple of years with those kind of things. I thought I could accept suicide because of my donor, but then when it happens to your own family, I can really understand how my donor's family were feeling and the devastation they went through, and I suppose I can see how grateful they were that their daughter could go on to help somebody else live when she obviously didn't want to anymore.
A girl said to me one day, "Julie, how can you sleep at night?" Oh, I thought that no problem.
Did you a great satisfaction?
Yes, but I tell you what she said to me.
Yeah.
I bet inside in Superville in Kentuck. "How can you sleep at night?" she says to me. I said, "No problem." I said, "Missus, can you sleep at all?" "Oh no," she said, "I can sleep, Brent, but if I was like you, I couldn't." I said, "What do you mean?" "There's somebody else's heart inside you now," she says. "You can sleep with that." I said, "I'll tell you now something, my dear. With my own heart I had long ago, I couldn't sleep with it. I'd be afraid I wouldn't wake up. But my donor heart now, I can, no problem, going to bed at night to sleep, I can wake up the following morning. Perfect."
As of yet, I haven't written to my donor. I think it's going to be a very hard thing to do. The hospital say you can write to your donor after 6 months of having your surgery, and I haven't come around to doing it yet, as I really don't know what to say, and because it's their loss and my gain, I'd kind of feel like, oh, I'm writing to them to thank them for donating the organs, but at the end of the day you have to remember that they've lost something close that they love to them. I'd hope that they'd be happy and realise how much of a life they've given me than like I've had before, and that person who has passed away has given life to someone else who hasn't even had a life yet. Like, I was really young when it happened, and I really needed a heart to be able to live my life, or else I would have just been sick and my life just wouldn't have existed. I plan to write to them soon, even though I say that a lot, but it's just really hard to know what to write and to know how much to write, like whether to write a little bit or a big bit, or even just to send them a mass card, or I don't know really. Like, I'd like to hear back from them, but if they never wrote back, if they didn't write back or contact me back, I'd still understand, as it was someone they lost, that it was reminding them of, like.
Not last summer, the summer before. I love travel, so I took the chance of being able to go far, and I went to China. My best friend, her husband is Chinese, and she was living over there at the time in Beijing. So I went over to her for a month, and before my transplant, there's no way I would have been able to go off to somewhere like China for a month with oxygen and the whole lot. So off I went to China for a month and did everything, climbed the Great Wall of China, and it was just incredible to be able to do that. Even my friends that were with me couldn't believe that I could actually climb up the Great Wall of China, and probably did it better than they did. And just being able to walk around Tiananmen Square and the Forbidden City, and it really was a dream come true. It was one of the highlights of my life after the transplant, because there's no way I would have even dreamt of walking to the top of the street, never mind the top of the Great Wall of China. And it was an incredible experience that I think everybody should do after that transplant.
And then I think I must have went to sleep, and then I saw one of the ward managers, Fiona, from the Sacred Heart ward, and she was standing there, and I said, "Fiona, But I knew there was tubes and everything around me. But I was very comfortable, very comfortable. And I knew I could feel my chest going up and down. And I couldn't look at it. And I called Fiona and I said, hi. And she said, do you know me? And I said, yes. And she said to me, we had a party up in the ward. And I said, did you? And I said, who was at the party? And she said, naming all the girls that were on the ward where I was. And say, who was the party for? And she said, you. You mean, bitch? I said, you'd never asked me to it. And she said, there's nothing wrong with her. There's no brain damage with her. She said, she's given out. And it was after that then I realised that I got my transplant.